Hey guys, what's up? So this is a slightly different type of video, right? In my short, go and check those out. They're educational, they're funny, they're vibe. Check them out if you like IT and nerd stuff. For those of you who are somewhat new to the channel, we are migrating from Linux stuff to Azure cloud stuff, and we're going to be doing Linux stuff in the cloud. Right? It's stacking up. So if you need some Linux fundamentals, go and watch my old playlist. It is a 26-part series where we walk through Linux basics, everything from basic command line to some bash scripting to firewalls to SE Linux to Podman containers. Lots of good stuff over there. Now we're on Azure. And in the shorts we're doing in Azure right now, we're talking about storage accounts and connecting to storage accounts. And I figured why not try to connect a Linux VM to a storage account. And then I've been on a 2-day deep rabbit hole of trying to figure this out. Let's see if on day 3 we can solve it. So if you actually want to connect your Linux machine to an Azure file share, you're going to need a few things. Before you start, you're going to need a storage account. You'll need file storage configured on that storage account. You'll need a VNet. You'll need a storage endpoint on your VNet. You'll need a storage firewall. You'll need a storage firewall configured on your VNet. You'll need a Linux virtual machine. And you also need to make sure that Linux virtual machine is on the same VNet as everything above. To the opposite of me is a good graphical diagram of how this is set up. You'll have your virtual network connected to a virtual machine, and you'll have your storage account connected to a file share. And you'll use your storage endpoint to allow communications between the two. So the first step to begin this entire process of connecting your Azure hosted Linux VM to a Azure storage account file share is to log into the VM. Step 1 of this process is to install Azure CLI. I thought this would be as simple as mounting a virtual IP address using SMB from the VM, but it's not. You actually got to do quite a bit to get this working. I feel like Microsoft could make this simpler. Please make it simpler. Please make it easier. Please just give service endpoint a virtual IP. Please. Once you've gotten logged into your VM, you'll want to run a quick sudo apt-get update. If you need some help getting logged into your VM, please check out my shorts. I actually have a video that covers it in less than like 60 seconds. So once you've logged into your VM, you'll then want to install sifutils. We can do that with a sudo apt-get install -y sifutils. Then we clear this away. After that, we do an apt. After that, we have to install some tools to connect to the Microsoft repository. So we do an apt-get install -y ca certificates, curl apt transport, https, lsb release, and gnupg. Don't forget to add sudo so it actually runs the command and installs what you need. You clear it. From there, you're going to curl the Microsoft signing key. So this is actually too long for me to really talk about, but I will paste it to the bottom of this video. All right, so it's curl, that's SL, https microsoft.com/keys, and then you pipe the gpgd armor, and then you're basically just saving the key. You then run an echo command to verify the contents of the key file, and it should output this line right here: Microsoft bookworm main. After that, you have to do an apt-get update once more. Don't forget your sudo. Then you can do a sudo apt-get install -y Azure CLI. We can then verify everything's working by doing a quick AZ version, and you should see this output. You can see it says Azure CLI 2770. So we've got Azure CLI installed. Time for step 2. For step 2, we have to test connectivity using Azure CLI. How do we log into AZ CLI? Well, we're on a headless server. The command is going to be AZ login --use device code. It's going to generate a link for us to log in using our regular web browser. You then copy and paste your device code. You'll then be presented with this page, and all you have to do is copy the code from this command right here, then paste it right in this window. After that, just sign into your account like you normally would. Enter your password, enter your two-factor code, and we just hit continue. And with that, we're now signed into Azure CLI. In the background, you'll see your command line change to this, and you'll see your subscriptions. Before we proceed, we'll need to verify the storage account is actually properly set up. So let's go into storage accounts. Let's click the storage account with our shares, and let's go to networking, manage. And what we want to verify is that the only network that is allowed access to this storage account is our private VNet. As you can see, it shows Debian VNet 1. Let's expand that out, right? And you can see that this VNet is part of my test subscription. Take note of your subscription. You will need that info when we go back to the command line in a few moments. So we verified that our storage account is tied to our VNet. Let's go back to command line and select our subscription, which is test subscription. We're back on our command line and we hit 2, and there we go. So we have now selected our subscription for Azure CLI. Now it's time for 2B, and we're going to test connectivity to our storage account. Then we drop back to command line and we do an AZ storage account show resource group, and then we paste in our resource group. Then we type in the name of the storage account and you just paste that in. And then you want to type in query primary endpoints dot file dash OTSV. Just double check, make sure you didn't spell anything wrong. We should be getting an output from that. So let's double check our command and see what we missed. Case does matter with these commands. After testing your connection, you should see a output similar to this. That is the web address for your storage account. What we want to do is save that web address to a variable called file host. Basically, what we're doing is setting a variable, and that variable is set to the output of the command we just ran. So hit paste, and now when you do echo file host at the end of this, you'll notice it says low spec lab test storage. We're then going to have to get netcat installed in order to test the HTTP web connection. So you can do a sudo apt-get install -y netcat traditional. You let that install, then do a netcat -z to just send data and check if the port is open. V for verbose output, and W3 to wait 3 seconds. And then we'll do file host, and then we do port 445. And as you can see, it's open. We can now move on to step 3, which is to create our credentials file. In order to do this, we'll be getting our storage account key from Azure, and then we'll also be creating a file on our Linux server called SMB creds. First, you hop back into Azure. You click storage accounts, click your storage account again, scroll down to access keys, and then you want to show one of your access keys and copy it to clipboard. Then we're going to go back to CLI. Once you're back on the command line, you'll then want to create your storage account file. You can do that with a sudo nano/etc SMB credentials, and we'll call this LSL storage account 2.creds. You want to type in your username, and your username is equal to your storage account name. You'll type in your password, and your password is equal to your storage account key, and then you'll want to save. Then you'll want to change the permissions on that creds file to read write for root and nothing for everybody else. So that's 600 etc SMB credentials LSL storage account 2.creds. Oh, don't forget to sudo, because you will need the right permissions. And there you go. Then it's time for step 4, which is testing the mount. We then have to set another variable. That variable is going to be SMB path. To set that variable, you just do SMB path equals, and then you want to put it between 2 quotes, and then you just copy and paste your storage account name .file.core.windows.net / and then you put in the name of the share you want to mount, and then you verify it's working by doing an echo SMB path, and there we go. You need that variable for our last command, which is to actually test the SMB mount. To test our mount, we'll need a directory to mount it to. So what we do is a quick sudo make dir /mount, and we'll call this iz file share. Now it's time to actually mount it using the syps command. This is, like I said, this was a rabbit hole that took me a couple days to figure out. So we do sudo mount -t sifs, and then we put in our source, which is the SMB path we just said earlier. So you do SMB path because that's a lot easier than typing out the entire URL. We then do our destination, which is mount/az file share. And then we enter our credentials file. So that's O credentials equals, and then we point it back to our credentials file we created earlier, which is at etc, SMB creds, LSL storage account creds. Then we put in our mount options, which is server INO, no share sock, AC time O equals 30, and then MFSYM links. And then we put in our mount options, which are Sir INO, no share sock, AC time O equals 30, and NFS links. I messed up these arguments, so it's server INO, no share sock. Let's go through this again. AC time O, MFSYM links. Now, how do we verify our mounts completed successfully? If you do a df-ht, you'll notice you now have a file share mounted on AZ file share that is 100 terabytes, which is far more space than we actually have allocated to this virtual machine in Azure. Now that the mount is tested as mounting successfully, let's try writing a file. Let's do a touch. Now that we've confirmed that our directory is working, let's do a sudo nano/mount AZ file share test file, and then we'll type in test and we'll save. Now we do an ls/mount AZ file share test file. Now let's cat ls/mount AZ file share test file. Then you'll see the file is listed there and it has contents. Finally, it's time for step 5, which is configuring auto mount. So let's go ahead and get that knocked out. So the next step is to configure our auto mount using fstab. How do we do that? Well, first you want to echo out the value of SMB path. You'll need that. So let's do an echo SMB path. You can see just copy that and store it somewhere. Then you want to do a nano/etc fstab. You want to start this file with your SMB path. So just paste it there. Then you want to point it to your mount destination, which is AZ file share. Then you want to configure your mount options. I'm going to paste this to the bottom of the YouTube video so you can copy and paste it. Then you want to configure your mount options. I'm going to paste this to the bottom. Then you want to copy your mount options. I'm going to stop it. Then you want to configure your mount options in the CFS tab. So what you want to do is type in sifs netdev no fail credentials. For the credentials value, you'll then want to paste in the location of your SMB creds file. So we'll just paste that in. That's the SMB credentials creds. Then you want to configure your mount options, which is server INO no share sock AC time O equals 30 MF symlinks. And then you want to put your mount options at the end, which is 0, 0. After you've configured your mount in the CFS tab, you want to exit and save. And then you can do a sudo mount-a. And there you go. If we're in df-ht again, / you'll see we have our mount still listed there. Now we have 64 kilobytes taken up on it. All right, boys, that's it. That is how you configure a Linux virtual machine inside of Azure to connect to an Azure file share. I feel like that should be a little bit easier, but took me a few days for me to thug my way through it, boys. It was a somewhat hard config. Give it a 6 or 7 out of 10 in difficulty. If you like this type of content, cloud and Linux stuff, go ahead and hit the like button. If you have any questions or comments or see a better way to do this, leave a comment down below. As always, thank you for watching. Peace.